Boom. We are back with the 115th edition of the Quarantinecast. I'm joined by Westin Wilson. Without further ado, I'll bring him in. Hey, man, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. How are things going there, man? How's everything going with the pandemic?
It's been good, honestly. I live in South Carolina now, and pretty conservative state, so we didn't follow the rules that much. We only had a minor spike, I guess. But yeah, it was good. I mean, I trained the whole time. I didn't stop training. I didn't quarantine or anything like that. I guess, I shouldn't publicly say that, but anyways, I did. I didn't take any time off.
I'm like the opposite. I'm in Nova Scotia, which I think is like the safest place supposedly in North America, and complete opposite. Like you can't train, you're not allowed doing anything. We're about to go on second lockdown. It's ridiculous, but man, so man, you had a huge win. How did it feel to get back in there and get it done?
Well, I haven't gotten a fight yet.
You fought in August, right?
Yeah, I fought in August. On a short notice fight, it was, I started live streaming. So during all this pandemic stuff and COVID and everything, I saw that all the regional scene was hurting. I work in software. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a live streaming company, and I'm going to come up with a plan to help promoters like make actual money doing digital live streaming. A lot of the services currently on the regional scene, they'll either charge 50% of revenue, or hey, we'll just pay you a flat rate, and then we will, take all the subscriptions and everything else, and get to keep all the copyrights on your video recording. So it's like, I can do better as a fighter and as somebody who's worked in the industry as a promoter and stuff. It's like, I can do better. So I created a software service, and so that's how I start pitching to all these promotions. Like, hey, if you put me on, I'll just waive all my fees, and you just keep 100% of profits. So that's how I got that fight in August. And yeah, they're like, we got this guy. He wants to take on anybody. He's 47-year-old, never had an MMA fight, but supposedly like a grandmaster in karate and a grandmaster champion. And I was like, cool. He can't be better than any of the karate guys I train with. I was like, let's do it.
It didn't last very long.
No, yeah, it's funny. So I trained with Stephen Thompson and Coach Thompson, his dad, and I was in the corner before the fight, and Coach T is like, all right, I don't think it's going to last more than 30 seconds. And when they said 43 seconds, I was like, dang it, I'm sorry, Coach. I failed you by 13 seconds.
You were supposed to fight last weekend, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I was looking it up. I was like, where's this fight? So it fell through. So kind of describe what it's like to like prep for a fight and then have it fall apart, especially after, a 2020 that hasn't necessarily been the greatest in terms of activity.
Yeah, so there's a big fight card in Utah, and I was going to be on it. I was going to rematch my very first opponent that I ever fought, Skylar Frazier. He believes that he would have won that fight, even though he got submitted after like 4 minutes into the fight. So he hasn't fought in 3.5 years. I've only been training with top guys. Like before I moved to South Carolina, I was training with Raymond Daniels. I was training with Jiva Santana, like several guys who were top in their individual sports. So I was like, I don't know how he thought this fight would go. But I actually had to pull out of the fight 2 weeks before the fight because I got a concussion. So I'm still going through concussion protocols and everything like that. But yeah, the fight ended up getting scrapped altogether 48 hours before the event because of COVID. So Utah had a huge spike. They had like 4,000 new cases on Thursday. Weigh-ins were supposed to be Friday, and the promotion ended up pulling the plug just because Utah kind of went into a new state of emergency. They're at like a 25% positivity rate. So 1 in 4 people are testing positive right now. Jeez. And so they're just like, yeah, we got to cancel the card. So they pushed it back to January 16th, which I'm not sure if I'm going to be on that card or not. I currently just got booked to fight January 9th. for Valor FC. So.
So your concussion and all that stuff looks good. You think that'll be all cleared up? You'll get the okay before that fight?
Yeah, I'm working with a couple different clinics right now and going through different protocols. Just because it's important to kind of get back and get safe. I think too many guys, they try to rush through things. I mean, I'm one of them for sure. We're fighters. We like to fight. And so like I'm doing everything I can to get back and meet those protocols, but at the same time, I'm trying to be as safe as possible. And luckily I've got somebody like Coach Thompson in my corner who, he's not gonna let me rush too quickly. He's the one who ultimately is like, no, I don't feel like you're well enough, or let's take it slow, no rush. And so he's the one who kind of keeps me in check, which is nice.
I wanted to talk a little bit about that. I mean, what sort of relationship? I guess how much does that relationship mean to you? I mean, obviously the success you see with Wonder Boy. So what's it like working with both of those guys? I mean, obviously working with a guy like Stephen Thompson day in and day out, there's not much anybody on the regional scene can offer you that he can't.
No, yeah. So, I mean, in terms of striking and MMA in general, right? So with Wonder Boy, it's awesome because it's somebody who has fought the top of the top for so long. It's just great to be able to pick his brain, like, pre-fight nerves and things like that, and seeing how he deals with it, and realizing like he gets nervous before fights, even though he doesn't show it. Like being able to talk to him about that and be like, okay, so how do you overcome that? How like what do you do in that situation? And so being able to just like, I've been doing this sport for long enough that the one piece I've always struggled with is the mental aspect, that I now have that important piece, right? It's not necessarily like, this guy does like crazy things and I haven't ever seen that before, because we've got so many talented guys in this gym, and everybody's got like a very similar like karate background. We've got good wrestlers. We get people who come in just to get that mat time with Wonder Boy, that we're constantly getting different looks. And so it's the mental aspect for me has been the most important, and being able to like pick his brain, talk to Coach Thompson about some of these things, and having that open relationship with the communication of hey man, like I don't know why I'm nervous for this fight. Like when I fought that 0-0 guy, like I was overly nervous because like, does this guy know something that I don't? Like, why would he fight me? Like, why? Like, and like it was good because Coach T is just like, it's okay to be nervous. He's like, but you got nothing to fear, and so that was like, okay, cool. Like I'm good. I'm ready. So that's been fun. And then, man, like just learning like the angles and things like that. And there's just little things that Stephen does, that Coach Thompson does, and all the other coaches here do. Like there's just little things that you're just like, whoa, I would have never thought of that. But that little inch or that little, going from a 45 to maybe like a 50-degree angle or whatever, like some of that stuff just makes such a difference, and changes your game. I know for me, being able to use at 6'1", 6'2", at 145 pounds, like being able to use my reach and be able to like be a little bit faster, has really improved me as a fighter overall. And because of COVID and because of like all I've gotten to do is train, and all I've gotten to do is like develop and not have to worry about fighting, I feel like going into 2021 I'll be even better, because there's like new stuff that I can show off that I haven't gotten to on the big stages yet.
His mentality is unlike anybody I've ever seen, really. I mean, you saw what he did. I mean, he got knocked out by Anthony Perez and was laughing about it on a live stream shortly after. I mean, it's really, really hard to come across guys like that who are so positive. And I mean, it could be a blessing. It could also have its negatives. I mean, you also want people to take it seriously too, but it really is. But
that's the difference, right? Is it's the positivity, and even though like, not that didn't hurt, like that, not that he was like, it wasn't like he was like, oh, whatever, and didn't care. It was like, what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And instead of like being negative and being down in the dumps and depressed about it, it was like, okay, this happened. It sucks, but I'm going to move on and I'm just going to build from there. And so that, like, honestly, that teaches me how to take losses better, but it also teaches me how to win better as well.
Yeah, for sure. I want to talk a little bit about a friend of yours, and also someone who you've trained with in the past, who's competing this weekend, Alex Perez. And I also want to ask your prediction for the fight, as someone who knows him well and someone who's trained with him. What's your opinion on the fight and him as a person?
Yeah, so Alex Perez and I trained in California together before I moved to South Carolina. I was in California. I wasn't part of Team Oyama. I was part of One Jiu-Jitsu under Jiva, and he also worked with Jiva. So we would do a lot of our training together a couple times a week, a lot of our grappling and Jiu-Jitsu. And Alex is like, he's also just a super good dude. Like, I don't know, like, he hasn't gotten like the FaceTime like Wonder Boy has and the exposure like Wonder Boy, but he's very similar in the fact that he's just really, I don't know, really cool, really just a good teammate, always there to help and support, no matter like how big he gets. Like, he's still real and down to earth. In terms of like grappling, dude's good, like very good, very tenacious, doesn't give up on things. Like I've seen him go with welterweights and beat or hold his own against him. We would do king of the cage, where one of us would be on the cage, one of us would be in on a takedown, and winner stays in type thing. And that dude just, like, even if like you think you got him off, he just keeps going until one of you breaks, right? And oftentimes he would break me first. But it's been cool to see his progression since that Joseph Benavidez loss. Like, he got his mind right. He was the one who kind of turned me on to some of the mental training. So I saw he was using a few different or a mental trainer. So I was like, cool, I'm going to go through that same program. Luckily, we've got a coach out here who does it at Wonder Boy's gym. And so I was able to start working with that same program and everything. And it's really, changed my whole game. And just seeing that aspect, and seeing like, okay, he's spending time on all aspects, not just like the fighting, but like the mental aspect as well. It was cool for me to realize, like, I need to invest in that. I need to pay somebody to work through some mental blocks that I have. And then seeing his success this year and making it to the title, very cool. As for a prediction, I don't think they'll go to the ground. I don't. They're both really good on the ground. Figueredo, he is a heavy hitter, but I think Perez is crafty enough, and I think they'll underestimate Perez's striking, and they'll end up getting shocked. Perez also has got very good clinch work. If he keeps him clinched on the cage, he could grind out a five round decision, just clinch him on the cage. Also, Alex doesn't get tired either, so that's another factor. I don't know about Figueredo's cardio. I really haven't seen a ton of Figueredo's fights. So that's my educated guess is I could see Alex grinding out a decision over 5 rounds.
All right, I'd like to kind of get back to you as well. I mean, this sport is very unusual. I mean, you hear people from all walks of life, people like the Diaz brothers who would fight no matter what, other guys who have kind of like an MMA background. That being said, what was it that really brought you to this sport?
So I wrestled for a really like competitive school. We were a top 30 program in the nation. Everybody on our team was recruited to wrestle in college, everything like that. My junior year, my dad worked for the DEA my whole life, the Drug Enforcement Administration. And so we got transferred out to Brazil the end of my junior year. And not only that, I had to repeat my junior year when I got out there. And they didn't have wrestling, and that was all I did. I didn't play other sports. I had no interest in other sports. Like, I wanted to fight, I wanted to wrestle. And this was back before MMA was cool. This was back before people really knew what the UFC was. This was in like 2005, 2006. And so my dad was like, look, you can't wrestle anymore, but I'll let you do MMA. And so I was like, cool. So I was like a 17-year-old kid, just like looking, not speaking any Portuguese, nothing like that. I was like, I'm just going to go to this gym. And it was a Brazilian top team in Sao Paulo. So it was part of the Brazilian top team. And so I went and I just started training. And then from there, I was like, I want to fight. I want to fight. Like, let me fight. So I did a couple amateur like kickboxing and jiu-jitsu tournaments and stuff like that. They never let me do like full-on MMA because they're like, there's not a lot of regulation. You're just going to get hurt. Like, no, we're just going to protect you from that. So, but yeah, I was, kid in high school. I guess one of like the first generations that was like from 17 on just doing MMA. So
am I crazy to think this, or did I hear an interview where you said that you were one of the only, if not the only, Mormons that actually compete in MMA?
So back at the time, yeah, there wasn't a lot of Mormons. There are a couple. I wouldn't say I'm the only. I think a lot of like people try to like blow that up. My whole thing is I wanted to be the Steve Young of MMA. There's always been like Mormon guys in the NFL, but nobody known like Steve Young was, like everybody knew who Steve Young was back in the day in the 90s. Right. So that's what I wanted to be. I was like, yeah, I'm a BYU grad. I do know that I'm the only current BYU grad, from that does MMA, but there are a few of us. There's I think Carson Gregory or Carson Hardman, something like that. There is another one who just got signed to the UFC, but he doesn't really talk about it that much. I won't bring up his name. But yeah, there's not a lot of us. There's only a handful of us. Yeah.
What's the ultimate? I guess. How do I word this? Like, how do people in the community and the church view you? I mean, obviously, not being many, is that something that's viewed as negatively? Like, oh, I go out there and I fight for a living. How's that looked at in the church?
Yeah. So it's come a long ways, right? So in 2006, when I first started fighting, like it was pretty frowned upon.
Yeah.
And then as time went on, more and more people were accepting. Like even my mom and my sister initially, like they weren't like exactly thrilled that was doing it. And then there's kind of like this flip, like this switch in the sport, probably around like 2014, 2015, where like the sport kind of like they kind of, I don't know, there was more like really high class athletes at the time. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like there was just some flip in America with MMA, where more and more people were accepting of it.
Yeah.
And so kind of around then, like when I fought for Bellator and I had a ton of interviews, and even the church, like the LDS church media and everything, they kind of like started doing some interviews and pieces on me. That was when like more and more people like started writing me and started like messaging me like, hey man, it's really cool. Like that's an inspiration for me. Or a lot of like kids were like, hey man, like I want to be able to follow my dreams like that. Like that's really neat that you're, stay persistent since you're a kid on wanting to do this and you're able to do this and go out and reach, your goals. I mean, I still haven't reached the ultimate goal, but I'll get there. And so it was kind of cool to see that flip, that switch flip, like overnight almost, like where it was like all of a sudden people like really cool and supportive and hey, like this isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like it's just a sport. It's not, it's violent, but it's not like the kid's got anger problems or, that he's this deviant person, like I think society just kind of flipped and it was just like, yeah, okay, like this is a sport, just like football is or basketball or wrestling, like It's not this horrific evil thing. Probably around the time that New York legalized MMA.
Yeah, I mean, like at one point it was like guys like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, and everyone viewed them as like the
bad boys.
The bad boys, right? And then you had like an era where like George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva, these guys,
martial arts.
Exactly.
Yeah, they paved the way, and then you got your Sage Northcutts and your Wonder Boys, and that are just authentic, genuine, good guys who, if you were to meet them in a crowd, you would have never thought that they were fighters. So, and now like people see like there's different characters for sure and different types of fighters, but I think it's diversified enough to where, it relates to a bigger mass of audience, right? Exactly. You still got your BMFs like Masvidal and Diaz brothers and everything else, but then you got your NMFs like Sage and Wonder Boy who has the title, and so it allows me to like kind of fit into where I don't have to put on a persona or anything like that. You got your Chael Sonnens and you have all these different personas now that all sorts of different people can relate to. We now are an international enough sport, a big enough sport to where it doesn't matter what your background is. There's a fighter that you can relate to.
I want to talk a little bit about, I guess, what the ultimate goal is in your career, whether it be make as much money as I can and retire. I've heard that. Whether it's, go compete for the UFC, to be able to share my message on the biggest stage. What is the ultimate goal for you?
So thing is with me is I make really good money outside of fighting. I just started my live streaming company. That's actually taken off as well. As of right now, it's still a side hustle. Like I work in software as a product manager. I make good money. I don't need to fight. That's not my income. Oftentimes I've spent more money for a training camp than I've even made. And so it's more about legacy for me, right? Like I was told when I was 13 or 14 was when I first saw MMA. Not Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz slamming Evan Tanner and knocking him out. Like that was like one of my first experiences. And I was like, this is really cool. Like people are getting paid to do this. Like, that's really neat. So I started wrestling, and from then on, I was kind of like, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. 2005, it really started blowing up for me. Like there was the Ultimate Fighter, but at the same time, there's only like 10 of us in my high school of like 4,000 kids in Virginia that even knew what UFC was or even liked it. And then 2006, 2007, that's when I got to actually start doing MMA and start training. And so during that time, though, I had a lot of people say, like, you can't do this. You can't be successful. Like, you're not, like, that athletic. You're not that. You're not this. You're not, So I had a lot of negativity that drove me. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to prove everybody wrong. And it's been cool to see steps like when I fought for belts, when I fought for LFA, when I fought for bigger promotions, it was cool to see people say, like, hey, you know what? I was wrong. But cool, you admitted that. Now for me, it's like I got to be the top. I got to reach that top. It's not now. I don't care so much about the negativity because I've done that. I've reached, I appease those negative naysayers. It's now like legacy for me, like I want my kids and my grandkids and I want my family history, from my future generations. I want them to be like, to use me as an inspiration for their life, like, hey, my dad or my grandpa or my great grandpa, like he was just this average white kid who, had no natural talent, but he worked his butt off and he reached the top. That's what I want. That's what I want. It's for legacy now. It's not the money. It's not, for me, it's more internal. It's I want my grandkids and kids and everything to use me as that, pedigree of success. Like I want to set the formula for them and they can know, like, whatever they want to do, as crazy as it sounds, they know that it's possible because I set that pedigree up for them. I showed them that it was possible.
Man, I love that message, and I don't think there's a better message we can end on. So with that being said, is there anybody you want to thank, or anyone you want to shout out before we end this?
Yeah, man, I appreciate the time you gave me. Anytime. I love MMA media guys and people like you who are helping throw our names out there and giving us the platform to speak. So I always appreciate anytime you want me on or share my opinion. I got plenty of them. Also, Upstate Karate with Coach Thompson, Wonder Boy, excited for his fight December 19th.
Yep.
We're in the midst of that camp right now. And Vital Performance, they're a sponsor of mine. Great collagen-based supplements. And Utah Air Guns, another company I work with quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, once again, I'm grateful to everybody, anybody who is a fan of the sport and follows along and helps us be able to do what we do, because without fans and the revenue that they bring in, it wouldn't be possible for us.
All right, man. I appreciate you taking the time. Stay safe down there, and man, all the best with you guys in this camp. I'm really looking forward to seeing Wonder Boy back in action, and I can't wait to see yours once it's announced.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Stay safe. All right, there you go. Westin Wilson, been a fan of his for a little while now. He had a rough patch there in 2019, but look forward to him turning things around here. He's got a right camp behind him with both Wonder Boy Thompson and his dad, Ray Thompson. So looking forward to what's next for him. And yeah, we'll see you guys next time. If you haven't yet, make sure you donate to prostate cancer. Obviously, I'm letting this grow a little bit. I should probably clean that up before the next one. Paul Felder also grew his out too, so for the exact same reason. So for awareness for men's health as well as prostate cancer, please donate. And yeah, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.